This is a download from BFM 89.9, the business station.
Good afternoon, you are listening to Live and Learn. I'm Lee Chui Lin. An average of 53 Malaysians are declared bankrupt every day, and among the youth, close to 25,000 below the age of 35 have become bankrupts over the past 5 years. According to the Asian Institute of Finance, some 40% of Malaysian young adults are spending more than they can afford. In the studio with me to address why this is happening and what we can do to reverse the trend are Puan Nor Akmar yaakub from the Credit Counselling and Debt Management Agency, AKPK, and Shahril Hamdan, the chair of UMNO Youth's Young Professionals Bureau. Both will be involved in a Ringgit Management Symposium, which my third guest, Hazwan Hairollah, is helping to organise. Lady and gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hazwan, let's start with you. Why do you think we're seeing this trend of young people living beyond their means?
Okay. Honestly, the main factor of this trend is due to lack of financial education and lack of financial discipline. And as we can see for the young people, or known as Gen Y, money is often used to buy something that they want instead of something that they need. Especially for those who live in the urban area, surrounded by peer pressure to live like the kings without proper financial planning, spending to please other people can lead them bankruptcy. Yeah.
And how is AKPK addressing this issue, especially in terms of financial education?
Okay, thank you, Lynn. Thank you for inviting AKPK. What happens is this. In terms of financial education, Bank Negara and AKPK have designed modules. It's according to individuals' life stages. And for the young adults, we have a module called, there are two modules for them, called the tertiary. These are from people who are in the university, from 18 to 25 years old. And then we also have modules for young adults, for the PLKN, the trainees, the Wira-Wirawati, they call it. The Malay module is called Mengapai Pelangi, to reach a rainbow. So we've got that module. And we also got module for students. This is the Power of Personal Financial Management, in which 82 universities or IPTS have agreed to infuse, and 29 universities have already infused the program. So in a lot of things have been done by AKPK for the young adults. So since the inception, we've touched about over 300,000 young adults on, prevention is better than cure, so all about financial education. Yeah.
Shahril, on your part, when did you realize that this is something that the Bureau perhaps needs to look into?
Thanks, Lynn. I guess to answer your question, we realized that this was something worth looking into when we looked at some of these, the key stats, some of which you've already mentioned. 25,000 Malaysians under the age of 35 bankrupt over the past 5 years. And then we looked at some other stats. 30% of salary, based on some research, has actually gone or going towards paying debts. Debts that, by the way, are not small debts that are categorized as serious debts. In fact, close to 50% of young people aged 35 and below have to service debts that are more than 30% of their income. So that's some serious monthly commitment. 15% say that they have no savings. So all these, we looked at all these data, and then we kind of brought it down one more level to figure out what were the driving factors. And there are research that shows that a lot of these cases of bankruptcy, or having serious debts at least, are driven by non-productive loans. So loans around cars, loans around personal loans, as well as credit card loans. So those are the kinds of debts that we felt, look, if these constitute more than half of the entire debt market in terms of individual debt, then clearly there's some, apart from whatever structural issues that we need to look at, there's something around behavioral issues that the Bureau could assist with. So that's the genesis of this focus of ours.
When we look at the numbers, that stat that we keep citing, 25,000 below the age of 35 have become bankrupt. Over the past 5 years, that's an interesting number. Puan Nor Akmar, is this situation currently facing Malaysian youths unique and unprecedented? I mean, is it something that only happened in the last decade or so, or is it something that we actually see generation to generation?
Okay. In some ways, it's not actually. It's a global trend. Most of the youth all over the world are facing this. yesteryear's youth of yesteryears, like during my period of time, because I know they are so young, you don't see them, but they're very young. The youth of yesteryears, they have choices, they have wants, but their wants are very limited because there's not much choice. But nowadays, it's the same thing. The youth, they have a lot of wants, and it's make easier for them now. The delivery is easy. You've got the mobile apps, you've got all this online purchase, so it's not really unprecedented, but these people, these young adults, they have choices, and nowadays the parents, I don't want to blame the parents, after all I am a parent myself, but you always reward. You have got material rewards for the children, as in the report that says. So, in a way, the young adults now catered more into instant gratification rather than delayed gratification. So, that's some of the issues that we need to face or teach the young adults. Yeah.
Part of that instant gratification, I think, is having a credit card that you can just swipe everywhere.
Yes, right.
More than half of Malaysians don't pay their credit card debt in full, and almost 1 in 5 opt to pay only the minimum each month. Should there be a stricter eligibility threshold for credit card approval?
Oh, in that sense, we always, in our teachings, I can tell you 20 reasons why you should have a credit card. The credit card is not the issue. It's the people. And so we always teach them, we've got courses or topics where you say, is a credit card, is it your master or your servant?
Yes.
So normally the credit card becomes your master rather than your servant. So when you have a credit card, are we trying to teach people that when you buy, you use it, when the bill comes, you pay in full. Because if you don't, this is a compounded interest. For example, I give you a simple example. This is all calculations are all done. If you have 10,000 ringgit of what they call credit card loans, spending, and then if you pay the 5% minimum, it takes you about over 7 years. It's about 88 months. And if if you get your statement and suddenly you got so shocked and you got pregnant or something like that, and then by the time you finish paying, your child is like 7 years old, who have gone to school. So imagine all the money.
And you are accruing more debt.
Yes,
probably.
There's hoping that you don't use it anymore. That's the only outstanding balance that you have. Yeah.
Shahril, Hazwan, perhaps a little bit of a personal question, but at what age did you both get your first credit card?
I got mine fairly late. I got mine at 27. But I just want to take, if I can just take off from what Puan Nor Akmar mentioned. I do agree to a large extent that credit card is not the issue, and that's kind of where we're coming from as well. If we educate the young people, the young generation, on how to use credit cards strategically, it's actually quite a sweet deal in terms of the points and the rewards you get. But being disciplined about paying in full or paying more than just a minimum at least, and then planning towards paying off in full in a matter of months as opposed to years, then actually the credit card becomes an asset as opposed to a servant as opposed to a master, right? So I think that's kind of where we're coming from, making sure the education is right, so that these tools become something that we use in a productive manner. I don't know, Hazwan, when you get your card.
All right. When talk about credit card, I have a unique story about how did I get my first credit card. Because after I have finished my studies and landed my first job, so my aim was to own a house. Yeah. So, however, I failed to get a loan because I don't have any financial commitment at that time. And for the bank to distinguish whether you are a good paymaster or bad paymaster, so they don't have any track record. And then after sought and advice from my mortgage banker, I landed my first credit card at age 25. But mostly I use my credit card for petrol and also tolls. And I believe you need to know how to differentiate between a good debt and bad debt in order to use the credit card.
Shahril, I just wanted to pick up that point you made about, if you know how to use it, it's a pretty sweet deal. So 27, that's a reasonable age to kind of know, hopefully, some discipline.
So.
Yeah, you would hope so, to know discipline, to understand the point system, to know how to use your credit card. How much thought went into it, and did you kind of weigh out all the possible benefits versus all the possible losses? What was the thought that went into it?
In a word, yes, a lot of thought went to it. In fact, surveyed some websites who that actually listed out why certain cards are better than others depending on what kind of rewards you want. So if you are into enrich points, then these sets of cards are better than the others. If you're into buying, I don't know, electronic goods, then there's another card. So I did spend quite a few days actually figuring out which card was best for me and my income level at that point. So yes, I don't know if this story of mine is representative of the rest of the generation. I would like it to be. I think being really deliberate about making sure that getting this card requires me to cap my spending at a certain amount, so that I know I can pay it off at the end of the month, such that the credit card becomes almost like a debit card plus.
Yes.
So I wouldn't, ideally, and this has not always been the case for me, admittedly, ideally I do not spend beyond what I would if I only had a debit card. Then the credit card really becomes a sweet deal.
I give you, if you don't mind, I give you another tip. You should take a charge card. Because a charge card is like a debit card because you pay in full, but it gives you 2 months turnover. That means you don't have to pay. If you buy this month, what month is this? November. So the next payment is in January. So you've got 2 months to accumulate the money.
Right.
So that's the difference between the charge card and the credit card.
I see.
I'm speaking today with Puan Nor Akmar Yaakub, head of the Financial Education Department at AKPK, Shahril Hamdan, chairman of the Young Professionals Bureau at UMNO Youth, as well as Hazwan Hairollah, who's part of the organising committee for Super. And we are discussing debt and bankruptcy among youth. We've mostly been addressing debt so far. Up next, we find out about bankruptcy. How does one get declared a bankrupt? What does it mean for you financially? All that up next on Live and Learn. You're listening to The Bigger Picture on BFM 89.9. Good afternoon. You are listening to Live and Learn on The Bigger Picture, and I'm Lee Chui Lin. I have a full house actually in the studio today. I've been joined by Puan Nor Akmar Yaakub, head of the Financial Education Department at AKPK. Also have Shahril Hamdan, chairman of the Young Professionals Bureau at UMNO Youth. They are both here because they'll both be participating in a Ringgit Management Symposium, which Hazwan Hairollah is helping to organise. And together we're all talking about debt and bankruptcy among youths. So let's talk about, we throw the word bankrupt around. Puan Nor Akmar, how does one get declared a bankrupt?
Okay. Well, actually, this question should go to this insolvency department, but it's okay. I'll try and answer as much as I can. For those of you out there, you can go into the website www.insolvency.gov.my. Actually, the Department of Insolvency does not make you bankrupt. It's actually the court that makes you bankrupt. So there's a lot of people don't understand that. So you're made bankrupt by the court, either by application of the creditor or yourself. So you can also make yourself bankrupt. So once the bankruptcy order is made by the court, so the DGI, the Director General of Insolvency, will in law will become the administrator of your asset. And also to oversee all the conduct towards repayment of your loans. A lot of people don't understand that. At what level do they make creditors can make you bankrupt? At what amount? Some people say 10,000, some people say 5,000. So in actual fact, a lot of people out there being scammed, in the sense that, your loan is about 5,000, you can be made bankrupt. It's not true, because in aggregate, if your debt is more than 30,000, then the creditor can make you bankrupt.
So once that happens, once you've either applied or a creditor has applied, what rights do you lose and how do you get out of bankruptcy?
Oh, okay. Upon the application of being a bankrupt, actually, if you go into the website, they list all sorts of things that you can't do. For example, you can't be a member of the parliament. And you can't hold a public office, and even you can't even borrow someone. In summary, you cannot even borrow 1,000 ringgit from someone. I can't borrow from them if I don't declare that I'm a bankrupt. So you have to tell them that I'm a bankrupt. So I want to borrow 1,000 ringgit. So because that guy is taking a risk. So all those things you can't go outside. All those rights. But we always tell people that it's not the end of the world. You go to the insolvency department, work it out. Don't kill yourself over all these issues. It's nothing. It can be helped. So work it out with the insolvency department.
So that 30,000 figure then. Let's assume that that's the number that I'm working with, assuming that I'm bankrupt. So if I pay that off, am I no longer a bankrupt? Is that how it works?
Yeah, you have to work it out with the insolvency and also the creditor. So if the creditor agrees, if the court agrees, then you can go to the court, because it's the court that makes you bankrupt. And then with the suggestion or proposal by the GGI, then the court can, after made all the payments, and you are no more a bankrupt.
Would you say that, looking at all those things that you can or cannot do, the amount of times you might need to declare over and over again, I am bankrupt, can you, lend me some money? Are our laws perhaps too punitive against bankrupts, or would you say that they're fair?
Well, on behalf of AKPK, I can't say whether it's punitive or not, but these are preventive laws. They are still looking at it. As far as I know, the Insolvency Department are looking at the bankruptcy laws. But what we're trying to teach people is that when you borrow, you've got an obligation. So if you think you're not be able to pay those borrowings, then take something that is within your means. Take something that it's within your capacity to pay, so that you don't have to, to go through this kind of stages later in your life.
I just want to jump in. I do think, actually, to your final question, Lynn, that maybe Puan Nor Akmar can't speak on behalf of AKPK, but my personal opinion, and actually this has been mentioned by the head of UMNO Youth, YB Kari Jamaluddin himself, that the bankruptcy laws are perhaps a bit too punitive, in the sense that there's no automatic release after X number of years, compared to some countries that do have this provision. And I think underlying why we think it's too punitive and perhaps high time for us to change is because there is a social stigma in maybe Asian societies more than others, and especially definitely in Malaysia, where being a bankrupt is seen as though it's the end of the world, right? As much as we want to do this program, we want to make sure people take preventive steps to avoid that status. But if one makes an honest mistake and gets into trouble, it's really no need to feel that it's the end of the world for them, or that people or society shouldn't give them a second chance. And we've got institutions like AKPK, like Jabatan Insolvency, who really exist to in part assist people in this situation. So I think a combination of loosening up a bit of the laws, as well as a more long-term societal shift in terms of how we view bankruptcy is needed in this case.
Yeah, sorry, and I think also because of the bankruptcy, we've been talking to the Jabatan Insolvency. Of course, sometimes you are bankrupt because of the issues, but sometimes, unfortunately, you become a social guarantee. A lot of those people become bankrupt because you're a guarantor or something. It's not really your fault.
It's really an honest mistake.
So because of that, we have asked them for these people to come to AKPK before they become bankrupt. So one of the criteria to be in our program is you're not a bankrupt. Up to a point of CP also, that we don't actually accept. But the point is, do not, when you get letters, open it up. Just don't sweep everything under the carpet and just say, just another, it's just another letter, I won't open it. You never know. One of the days you open the door and somebody comes over to your house and you're all sealed up and you're already bankrupt. So it's better that you open the letter, and then come to AKPK for advice. Perhaps you can do much better than that.
Advice and going back to the earlier points about education are, two things that I think are an important part of this as well. What goes on in AKPK's debt management program that hopefully helps to keep people, from being locked out of their own home someday?
Okay. What happens is that when people come to AKPK, a lot of people say, oh no, I don't want to come to AKPK because then I'll be blacklisted. The fact is that you're already blacklisted when you come to AKPK. We did not blacklist you. That's a lot of misconception there, So when you come over to see our counsellor, what the counsellor does is look at your debt and look at your budget. So budgeting is very important. That's what we've been teaching people. And then we see, we structure your debt in such a way that we have two debts. We have the unsecured debt and unsecured debt. So if it's unsecured, it's very easy, like a credit card, for example. So if you have 10,000 ringgit, for example, outstanding debt, outstanding credit card amount, and then we will structure it according to your budget, and then over the tenure of 10 years, that's a maximum. But normally we don't actually want people to be on the 10-year program, because the other issue is this. once you're in the program, it is very, very difficult to get you another loan. It's not that we don't allow, but the banks say, no, you've already in AKPK's program. That means you are having difficulty in repayment. If I were to give you a loan, that is going to be worse. So it's more of a discipline. So we structure them over the tenor according to their budget. That's what happened.
And before we talk about a little bit more about that, I just wanted to point out a tweet that had come in. And it's from Ng Un Yi, who says, those good credit card benefits disappear if everyone pays on time, though. Is that a fair statement? I mean, the system seems predicated on some people being late.
That's a fair point, actually. That's a fair point. I haven't thought about that.
So the problem is, I think, like, it's a nice idea to want to raise everyone to the same level, and yet once we do, those sweet deals go flying away. Okay, so looking back to the debt management program, you've reached out to about 250,000 people. Has there been any studies done to assess how they're doing, after receiving this education, this advice? How do they take it on board?
At the moment, we have, because, we are in the not the development years, we are on the growth years. So we have done our assessment. Actually, we have done an assessment on two issues, two objectives. Number one is on the financial education programs itself, and number two on the debt management programs. I can't share with you at the moment because we've done surveys, and also we will share with the public in due course. But overall, generally, people are very receptive to our programs. They are very thankful. We've actually done one program with AIM Sahabat, they call it Sahabat, and with the university. We hold hands with them. We teach them about financial management. The issue is there's a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, for example, they co-mingle their funds. They get loans from someone, from an organization, and they use that fund to pay for their own expenses, like, their husband's motorcycle, the electricity bill, that sort of thing. So we always teach them to pay themselves first. And so this is the part that they will pay all the bills, and the rest is for your business, So people are very happy that we are teaching them, and we come up with business plans. The students came up with a business plan. So overall, I don't want to call, the Malays would call shock sendiri lah. It's not that, but this is the feedback that we receive, that they are very happy with the programs that we have done for them.
We talked earlier also about this mindset of instant gratification, of living beyond our means, of having way too much choice when it comes to how we want to spend our money, when really perhaps we should be thinking about saving for retirement, even if that retirement's very far away. Shahril, Hazwan, have you both started planning for your... I feel like I'm asking you lots of personal questions, but I suppose that's just the danger of coming on radio. Have you both started planning for your retirement?
Yes, but only in a very loose sense. I have started planning for retirement in the sense that I have a target, an annual target of how much net worth I need to be in, how much savings I need to have, so that I, at the age of an assumed age of retirement and assumed assumed lifespan, I've kind of made those back of envelope calculations and figured out how much I think I need, and then therefore have a plan for every year. So in that loose sense, I do, and tracking it every month so that I meet those annual targets is something that I do quite rigorously. The challenge is, and I feel like almost curious in the sense that we're coming here talking about financial management, but all of us, I guess, are also, especially me and Hazwan being a bit younger, figuring out how you balance the lifestyle requirements, or lifestyle not requirements, but more so desires, and meeting those goals. So I think what is important is to be honest with yourself, kind of know what your actual wants and needs are, and obviously leave some room for leisure, pleasure. But I think the first step is having that annual targets. So having annual targets and therefore cascading it down to monthly targets, those are steps that I don't think many of my peers do. I think doing that is important, because even if you miss it, you kind of keep track on it, and then you promise yourself to catch up.
Yes, in my part, yes, I do plan for my retirement, and as well my focus about my retirement more on for my future children education, because I feel that education is the most important thing. Yeah, without education, you wouldn't be nowhere. Yeah, and like I'm one of the people who benefits from the government scholarship. So I believe in 15 to 20 years, there'll be no more free scholarship, or probably it's hard to get scholarship. Yeah, and so that's what I'm looking on. And also been working in in oil and gas industry. So I believe, there's a downturn in terms of, because when you go offshore, then you get paid. And if you don't go, you just only get your basic salary. So in sort of industry, make me like, I'm have to take care of my expenses monthly and also savings. Yeah, and I believe to all the listeners, even though it's a small start, you should start now. Yep.
Or they can become mentors.
Yes,
For young adults.
That was good advice. From your end, Puan Nor Akmar, do you think that right now saving for retirement is understood, that it needs to be a financial priority among the youths, or is it something that from what you've seen still continues to just fly over people's heads?
Yeah, I think we don't want to scare them, but it is very important. Like, I give you 5 points why they should. Number one, you live longer. Yeah. That's the issue now. I know. Yeah. I don't know whether it's thank God you live longer or what, but especially for women, they live a little bit more longer, and you've got to save a lot more for the women. Number two, the cost of living is getting higher, especially for medical. So medical expenses goes up about 15 to 30% yearly. So you've got to have your insurance and so on. Mm-hmm. And some people, there's a delay in starting family. So in that sense, when they come to retirement age, their kids are still in primary school. Mm-hmm. So or most of their kids, they got 8 children. 8 of them are not married. So you're already retired. That's quite alarming. And then of course, there's not enough savings for the young adults. Of course, they have time, but they don't have enough savings. Why? Because they have got very high loan commitments. And the last issue I want to mention is, I hate to say this, but it's the fact that the divorce rate has been very high. So some of the things affect your savings, affect the way that you want to plan for retirement. You bought a house together, and now you're not together. Then what happens? You break it into 2 or whatever you want to do. So those kind of things, we advise people to have some alternative for savings. Where do you put your money? Obviously not under the pillow. You won't earn anything, but you must go out there and educate yourself. Find the best investments for your savings. Yeah.
There's also, while that is sound advice, according to the Asian Institute of Finance, youth seem to be skeptical of professional advice by financial advisors and planners. Why do you all think this is so? I mean, firstly, is it true in your opinions? Do you think that younger people tend to look askance at these sorts of advice?
Maybe less of that than the fact that they don't think it's a priority. So, it's not something that people think about on a daily basis. I need to get professional advice on how I manage my money. So I think it's more of that as opposed to being skeptical. So I think the cultural shift or the mindset shift is that as much as there's so many variables at play, you can't figure out whether, when you're going to start a family, what's going to happen in terms of your job and income level. It's more of the mindset of me having to start with the Excel sheet. Right? I want to start with the Excel sheet. I want to put in all my variables. And sure, variables might change 3 months, 3 years down the road, but at least I have that. Not having that visibility whatsoever, that's the mistake. And that's a tragedy in my mind. Because if you have that, just by deduction, I don't think you'll see this kind of scale of problem as we do now.
If you look at how countries overseas are addressing this, I think, there are increasing... there's an increasing buzz in countries such as the United States, such as the United Kingdom even, to make financial education part of the schooling system, to actually have it as a module or a unit. Do we need a more coherent national policy on financial education in order to approach this issue more holistically rather than reaching out and hoping people will reach back?
Yeah. Actually, many people don't know that we actually have a financial education blueprint. It's by Bank Negara, by AKPK, by Securities Commission, by FOMCA, by PIDM, and all the other institutions of banking institutions. So they all have a role to play in educating the public so that the nation public are more financially literate. So we have that blueprint.
High debt and bankruptcy among youth is also a symptom of, it's a symptom of an economic problem, that's quite clear. But Shahril, do you think it's a problem which requires a political solution?
In a word, yes, especially when it comes to the structural issues surrounding what factors drive bankruptcy or drive high debt ratios. For example, I think in terms of having a real policy that really solves this affordable housing issue, in terms of ensuring that public transportation system is good enough that people take less cars or purchase less cars and therefore less car loans. Stuff like that, yes, it requires a political solution, requires political will to drive this through, and I'm quite happy to see that actually over the past few years that has happened. Not sure if the factor driving those things is because of that, but who cares, right? It's actually gonna, in theory, it should help reduce those kind of debts. So yes, it requires political solution on that front. But a lot of, and we keep going back to culture, keep going back to mindset. There's not much government can do there, apart from ensuring that agencies like AKPK and units like UMNO Youth help out on the margins. But it requires, I think, a mindset shift that starts from home.
Okay, just to add on. Yeah, in terms of political solution, I would like to say as well, like people out there, they need to have their own effort, and because it is very essential for them to get up to date with the current situation, because definitely the government will do something to help the people, but if the people just lacking of discipline and don't want to get in touch with the right department and organization, definitely they couldn't be helped. Yeah.
Interestingly, he was Shahril was saying about buying a house. Now, what we discovered is that all this Gen Y, all this youth, they want everything like what their parents had.
Yes.
But they just want it now.
They want more.
And they want it more, and they want it now. So they want, just hold on a while, Buying a house, we've got issues of people have been asking us about why can't the young adults buy a house now? You can, but it's just not now.
Yes.
And it's not the place like overseas, your office is down there, your house is on top. We don't. If you want that, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. Are you ready for that? So, you just hold on, make the savings, and then eventually you will find your house.
And finally, because we're running out of time, unfortunately, let's look at the symposium. Hazwan, perhaps you could tell us more about that. When is it taking place? How can people, participate?
Okay, it will be taking place on the 15th of November. Okay, the whole purpose of this event is to become a platform for professionals and fresh graduates in Malaysia to learn and convey their concern regarding their personal financial matters. At the same time, being involved in a two-way discussion with distinguished speakers which come from diverse backgrounds on ways to tackle the dilemma surrounding our generation. So by the end of the event, we hope the participants will be able to comprehend the basic knowledge on managing personal financial and be able to apply into the daily life using the super way.
Just to add what Hazwan said, we've gotten quite a good response so far. The website, by the way, to register is in www.supermalaysia.my. Super stands for Symposium Pengurusan Ringgit in BM. Website is supermalaysia.my. You can just register fairly simply. The location will be in Menara Yayasan Tun Razak on Jalan Bukit Bintang. That's on the 15th. So this is the first time we're doing it with AKPK. If this proves to be a success, as we hope it will be, in terms of turnout, in terms of feedback from the participants, we're really planning to try and bring this nationwide. So that's the plan.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you all very much for coming in. I've been speaking with Puan Nor Akmar Yaakub, Head of the Financial Education Department at AKPK, as well as Shahril Hamdan, Chairman of the Young Professionals Bureau at UMNO Youth, and Hazwan Hairollah, Organising Committee for Super, the symposium that's coming up. And we've been discussing debt and bankruptcy among youth today on The Bigger Picture, BFM 89.9.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To find more great interviews, go to bfm.my or find us on iTunes. BFM 89.9, the business station.